This is the Thor thermal camera from Thermal Master. This is a handheld thermal camera that has features and capabilities that you would usually have to spend thousands of dollars to get. However, this camera doesn't cost thousands of dollars. You can get this camera for between $300 and $600 depending on the version you choose, and frankly it is astonishing what you can get in a thermal camera now for this kind of money. Now today what I'm going to do is give you an overview of this camera, walk you through its features and capabilities, and then at the very end I'm going to share with you my thoughts having spent a little bit of time with it. Now, just to be crystal clear before we get into this one, Thermal Master did reach out and send me this camera to take a look at for free. However, they've not paid me to make this video, they've not seen this video before it's been published, and as always, my thoughts are entirely my own. Okay, so this is Thor from Thermal Master. Now, when you get this thermal imager, it does come in this nice plastic hard case. This should offer some nice protection. It's got some latches down here as well as a carry handle here. When you open it up, so you do need to give it a bit of a press to actually release the latches on each side. Just pressing that there. Inside, you will find the thermal imager itself. You have your instruction manuals as well as your warranty card. We have a USB cable, and then depending on the version of this you get, you may also get a macro lens in there. There are two versions of this camera available, one with a macro lens and one without. The version I've got here is the version without, but if you did have it, it would sit in that housing there. Now, obviously, it is foam lined, so this is going to offer tons of protection for the thermal imager. And then on the top of the case, you've got some nice soft foam packaging there as well. Taking a closer look at the thermal imager itself, as I've said, this is called the Thor. Now, there are two versions available of this. There is the version 001, which comes with a built-in macro lens, and then you've got the version 002 that I've got here. For instance, on this side you can see we've got the brand Thermal Master, and here it says the version, which is 002, and I'll talk about the differences a bit more when we move through the main spec in a minute. Looking around the device externally, obviously we've got a nice big display on the back with our control buttons. We've got our handle down here where we would hold it. There is a trigger on the front for triggering various functionality. On the bottom, you've got this nice metal aluminium insert that is actually screwed in, and that has a tripod mount on the bottom there. On the top, you will find a USB-C port for connecting up to a computer, as well as an SD card slot. What's nice about this is that not only can you record to the onboard SD, but you can actually view this on your PC as well via USB. And in fact, this even has Wi-Fi built in, allowing you to stream directly to the Thermal Master app as well. Then, moving around to the front section, here is where all of the main sensors are. In the middle, you will find our thermal sensor. Now, this is protected by this little cover, which you can open with a lever below. This sensor has a native resolution of 256 by 192 pixels. It has a 25 Hz refresh rate and a 40 degree by 30 degree field of view and a 12 micrometer pixel pitch. However, whilst it does have a 256 by 192 resolution, they say it is capable of equivalent of 512 by 384 based on their Super IR resolution feature, which we'll take a look at a little bit more later on. Alongside this, there is also a 2 megapixel visible light sensor down here. That is a normal camera sensor, allowing you to actually look at what you're viewing at the front. You then have a built-in LED light, as well as a Class 2 laser pointer. You'll also notice that there is threads on the front here. That, I believe, is for also mounting the macro lens, but I don't have that at this time. It's not actually available to purchase either as a separate item. As far as I'm aware, you can only get that additional lens with the other version of this unit. Going in a bit closer, the first thing I'm going to do is power it on. You will see this is fitted with a 3.5-inch IPS display. This has a resolution of 640 by 480, and that allows you to see the thermal image as well as anything off the other sensors on the front as well. Around here, you can see we've got our control buttons, we've got our power button, as well as various other controls. With regards to the refresh rate, it is 25 Hz on the thermal sensor, and it has a 60 Hz display. It has a field of view of 40 degrees by 30 degrees, and it has a minimum focus distance of 30 centimeters on the version that I've got here, or 8 centimeters on the version with the macro lens. Now, what that does mean is without that macro lens, this version here really isn't designed for detailed board repair. You can still absolutely use it for electronic repair on the bench. However, this is more of an inspection unit, and we'll take a look at use cases for that a little bit more later on. Now, as I've mentioned, because of the extra sensors included with this, there are lots of different options available. The controls for this work as follows. We've got our power button that obviously turns it on and off. There is a button here, which if I press it, turns on the torch on the front. So if I just show you that there, you see that little LED has come on. And if I press it again, that goes off. If I press and hold this, it will turn on the laser pointer feature. Now, I'm not going to obviously point the camera back at you to see that. However, you can see there that is actually showing on the bench, and that is available, and that shows you what you're looking at through the display. So it's just a nice easy way of marking. You then have this big center D button in the middle. This is our menu button, but it also has some additional options as well. So for instance, if I push it to the side, it has a zoom feature. If I push it up and down, it will control various different things depending on what mode you're in. And then when you press the center button, it brings up this quick menu along the bottom. Finally, you then got your back button, and then you got your playback button for playing back whatever's been recorded on board the main SD card. If I now go into the main center button options, it then brings up a quick menu along the bottom. This has options for measurement. We've got our image modes, our palette options, and then our main settings. Under our measurements option, we have here the option to turn on and off our center spot. So you can turn that on and off. You've got the options for max temperature. You've got the options for minimum temperature tracking, so you can turn them on and off as well. You've then got custom spot options where you can set a specific spot on the screen, and you can adjust this with the center button to position it where you want it. It's actually quite slow to move. If you press and hold, it will move, or you tap it lots of times, it does start to move, but it's a little bit sluggish. You've then below this got custom options for custom spot 2 and 3, and then you've got features like temperature difference addition and removal options, as well as the option to delete all of the markers that you've put on the screen. Next, along the bottom, we then have our image mode options. As I've said, this unit has multiple sensors. You've got your IR mode, you've got your visual camera mode, so this is just using that standard 2 megapixel sensor camera to see through the front. You've got a hybrid fusion mode, so this will use a combination of both the hybrid and the visual camera. This is quite hard to show you here, but I will show you it a little bit better later on. This allows us to actually adjust the amount of visual versus thermal. So you can go to full visual, and then you can start to overlay the thermal on it as well. This also has settings for adjusting the position of these. So if I go into this option to the end, there's a fusion alignment option that allows you to set the alignment of the fusion modes if you need to as well. That is available. And then also under the image modes alongside fusion, you have a picture-in-picture mode, which puts the visual camera on the outside and then the thermal camera in the center. Alongside these, we then have our color palette options for our thermal camera. On this version, we have all of the following options available. We have white hot, black hot, lava, iron, rainbow, rainbow HC, as well as RDGY. The other version of this camera that includes the macro lens does have other color palette options available. That is the options that are in this version. But as I've said, if you look at the spec on the other one, there are a few others on the model that has that macro lens. Then the final option is our settings option. Now this allows us to change all of the main parameters on the unit. Now I'm not going to go through every single option here, but I will give you an overview of the most important ones, the ones you need to be aware of. So we have our measurement parameter options, our emissivity settings, as well as our temp and distance options. We have temperature measurement range settings. You've got auto, or you can manually set it from -20 to +150 or 100 to 550C. We've got alarm settings. We have capture settings for still image capture. This will capture a still image of the thermal image on the built-in SD card. Your isotherm settings are available. Super resolution setting. This is that option that increases that resolution from the 256 native up to 512 by 384. We'll take a look at this in action a little bit more later on. We then have our video recording options. It can also record video to the SD card, our index mode, our unit settings, our Wi-Fi settings for that built-in Wi-Fi functionality. So that is there. Screen display settings, allowing you to turn on and off what is shown on the display. Our auto power off settings, and then our main system settings with things such as format SD card, device information, firmware updates, etc. Now, as I have mentioned, this unit does have the ability to take stills or record video. So for instance, if I just show that and then click the trigger, it'll then capture a still, which it will then save onto the SD card. If I want to record video, I can press and hold the trigger, and that will then kick the video recording in, allowing us to record that directly to that onboard SD card. And as I've said, you can see that's recording there. You don't have to hold the trigger to allow it to keep recording. And then when I'm finished, I can simply press it again and it will stop. Here, I haven't got the autosave setting on. If you have autosave on, it'll simply save it to the video on the SD card and you don't have to worry about it. Whereas if you don't have it on, you get to choose, do you want to save it, or you can just delete it. Alongside the main features, you also have some nice thermal analysis capabilities. For instance, the still images taken on board the Thor bake in all of the temperature data, what we would call radiometric, and you can analyze that later in their desktop software. Alongside that, when connecting this camera to your PC and using their software, not only can you record video, but it will record the video again with all of the temperature data points built in, and you can actually play back and check the temperatures at different points and even do things like change the color palette. For instance, here is a bunch of videos and stills that I have taken directly on board the Thor when it wasn't connected to my PC. If I just highlight over this image here, you can see this has both the thermal image as well as the visible light camera image. It actually takes both as part of it. If we double click it to go into the analysis, you can see as I move my mouse around, it is showing the different temperature points available within the image itself. But we can even take things a step further than this. We can go in and take a look at the different camera options. So we can go to the visible camera, and there you can see the image there. We can go to the fuse mode, which is a combination of both, picture-in-picture mode, or even the IMX mode, which overlays the two images to allow you to see in a bit more detail. You can even do things like change the color palette at this point. If I click on this here, I can scroll up and down. For some reason, on this monitor that I use for recording, it won't show the menu properly, but on my other monitor, it actually does. But you can see here at the top, I can scroll through all of the different color palette options. They are available in the software to choose. So you can go back all the way through. There's a load of options available within the software. Unfortunately, I can't show you all of them at this moment in time because they're not populating correctly on the screen. For instance, if I make the menu a little bit smaller, you can see it's now populated up out of the top. It works absolutely fine on my main monitor. It's just something to do with my secondary monitor. But here you can see all of the different modes available. So we can select all of the color palettes after the fact of taking the image. With regards to the videos recorded directly on the unit, these don't appear to have the thermal data baked in. However, as I mentioned earlier, if you connect the Thor directly to your PC, you can do a lot more around this. For instance, here is a video that I recorded on the camera whilst it was directly connected to my PC. This does have all of the thermal data included, just like the still images, and you have all that additional functionality, including the ability to change the actual choice of view that you have. So again, we can change the individual palette that we've chosen for it again after the fact, just like you could on the still image. Now, to connect this to your PC for live view is very simple. You need to just simply plug in a USB-C cable into that port on the top. Then in the Thermal Smart OS app, we need to go on to online and then select our camera from the list. It will connect and you can then see the thermal image. If I just open up the lens, you can then see that there. And that is a live view from the camera itself. So for instance, if I turn it around, you can see me there. And again, what's nice about this is you have full control from within the software. You have all of the data point options, all of the additional features. And then down here, we have the option to take a still image. So if I just do that, we can say screen prompt snapshot recorded, or we can record video. And again, that is going to record this with all of that thermal data included. So you can see that there. And then if I go back to there, you can see that. If I just show my other monitor, not a lot to show you on that one there. If I go over to my Stream Deck, my Rodecaster, you can see all of them there with a bit of heat. And then if we wanted to play that back, we can then go into the gallery. We can then go onto the recorded videos option, and you can now see that that one has appeared up here. And now again, we've got all of the options available. It's defaulted to that grey colour palette. So for instance, there I've selected lava. We can click play. And again, we have all of that additional functionality from the app if you wanted to have it in a bench setup like this. When it comes to using the Wi-Fi function on this, things are fairly simple and straightforward as well. All you need to do is go into the settings, into the Wi-Fi settings, and turn on the Wi-Fi hotspot. Then on your smart device, whether it be a phone or tablet, you simply need to connect to the Wi-Fi network exactly the same as you would connecting to any normal Wi-Fi network. Then you should see the camera appear in the app. Click connect, and then you should see the camera view appear on screen. It's basically streaming a replica of the main display. So if I just go back, you can see there thermally, it's the view from the camera itself. There is not a lot of settings in the app like you might find in some of the smartphone cameras. What you're getting here is basically a real-time stream of the video output, but you've not got all of the settings. You can, though, capture a still and record video, but it doesn't have all of the main functionality. If I go into the menu, it's simply a replica of what you would see on the display. And what this is going to be nice for is if you're in a situation where you have someone using it and someone else who also wants to look at it at the same time, or you might be using it in a scenario where you can't quite see the display on the unit, something up high. So I could move it up high like this, so it's above my head now, and I can use it there to look down into something whilst using the smartphone to be able to view what's going on. But overall, it's another nice option that they do include with the camera as standard. The next thing we're going to do is take a look at some thermal imagery. However, before we do that, I need to put in a disclaimer. Remember, content online is recorded in much higher resolutions than these thermal cameras are capable of recording in. This video was recorded in 4K, and I'm going to distribute this one in 1080p. However, that is still massively higher resolution than this camera will recording. The output video files from this camera are actually 640, and I'm going to upscale them to 1080p for this video. But do take into account that if some of the thermal imagery doesn't look as you would expect, it may be simply as a result of me upscaling it for this video. Thermal cameras do not have the kind of resolutions we've come to get used to on cameras like I'm recording this on today. And as a result of that, sometimes things can look a little bit bad. The first thing I want to demonstrate is the Super IR resolution feature. As I've said, as standard, it has a 256 by 192 pixel resolution. At the moment, that's what you're seeing here. Then I'm going to turn on the Super IR resolution. You can see this is symbolized by the X in the little circle in the corner. And I'm going to put both up next to each other so you can see the difference for yourself. There is no question to me that this does improve the image quality. It enhances the image, improves the clarity of the image, and definitely makes it look better compared to what you have in the standard mode. So here we're taking a look at my PV inverter in the workshop. We have a Raspberry Pi at the bottom, which is actually doing all of my data logging. And then we have the inverter at the top. Now, this is really just to demonstrate how the camera looks. This is in normal zoom mode. There is a digital zoom available on this unit as well, which I'll show you in a minute. Here I'm standing now about a foot away from the Pi. So just to give you an idea of what the resolution looks like, you can there easily see where the heat is on the inverter. There is a big metal heatsink on the back, and that's very clearly visible whilst looking through this thermal camera, and then you can see the heat emanating from the Pi below. To demonstrate the zoom, I'm going to stay in the same place. So this is in normal zoom mode. Then we're going to go to ×2 mode, which again, you can see there. And then we're going to move into the ×4 mode. Obviously, you are going to lose detail. You're going to lose resolution as a result of it being a digital zoom. However, this does give you an idea of what it's like. You're not going to be able to see detail, but it'll definitely get you in closer. Next, to demonstrate the fusion mode. This is in full thermal, and then we'll switch down then into 80% mode. This is using both the visible camera and the thermal camera to show you both elements. So there you can see we have our thermal imagery showing up, but you can see through that into the actual visible light camera, and this is a really cool mode. It allows you to see detail. You can even read the name of the inverter on the front. Here, taking it down to 60% mode, again, you have more of the image from the standard camera, but again, it's still overlaying the thermal image with it, allowing you to see the areas where the heat is emanating from the unit. Now, as I've said, this camera really is designed for general thermal use, built-in inspection. Here, I want to show you a radiator that we've got in my house. And I just wanted to demonstrate how you can use a device like this to find the pipes. Those pipes you see there are actually under the floor, and they're going up in the plaster behind the wall there, and you can see that the thermal camera allows you to easily trace these. Just so handy when you don't know the layout. Looking at the same radiator again, but this time using the isotherm settings. If you don't know what isotherm does, it allows you to exclude certain temperature ranges from the image. You can see here that the radiator stands out compared to the areas around it. Here, looking at a bell transformer, just to show you it on the thermal, you can clearly see the areas of the transformer that are getting warm compared to what's around it. Next to it, then, we have the electric meter with the mains cables coming out the bottom. I'm then looking over to my consumer unit. Everything looks cold because basically there's very little moving through it. But again, it just shows you what the camera can do. Looking at a car that was recently driven, here you can clearly see the heat emanating from the engine bay as well as the wheels and the brakes. I'm just going to show you that zoom function again. This is zoomed into the wheel from that distance you've seen in the first bit of video. Then, moving in closer to look at the wheel in more detail, you can see the warmth in the tyre as well as the heat in the brake disc. Again, for automotive applications, these are really handy, especially when you're looking for things that you wouldn't usually be able to spot with your normal eyes. Looking into the engine bay, you can clearly see what is getting hot, what is not, what is dramatically hotter than everything else around it. You can see there that sensor off the back of the exhaust is extremely hot and very visible under the thermal image. Next, I just want to show you what it looks like on big things at quite far distances. Here, we're looking through the visual light camera, and then I switch over to the thermal just to give you an idea of what it can actually see. Again, it's really easy to see the items that are producing heat compared to the areas around it, even at the great distances like you're seeing here. Okay, so to share with you my thoughts on the Thor handheld camera from Thermal Master, we're going to talk about pricing on this specifically in a minute between the two models and the differences, but I also want to highlight as part of this bit about what great value this is compared to other thermal cameras on the market. This camera costs roughly 3 times less than the FLir equivalent. The E5 Pro is very similar to this. However, even that has a lower thermal resolution than this, and I'm not talking about the AI resolution, I'm talking about the actual sensor resolution as well. This camera is incredible value when you look at all of the features and capabilities that you're getting. What's really nice about this is that it is easy to use. It has most stuff you need. It doesn't have the biggest range of color palettes in the world. There are a few little things that I think could be improved in the software a little bit, and I'm going to feed these back to Thermal Master. Things like being able to control the temperature points if you're doing custom ones, and there's a couple of things missing around span controls that I noticed, and I'm going to feed this back. However, I have to say, considering you're getting a thermal camera with a really good screen, and I will say the screen on this is fantastic, you're getting that thermal capability, that visual light camera, that infrared if you want the laser pointer, and you've got all of that additional functionality for analysis. You can connect it up to your PC, your smartphone, and you even have that radiometric feature that allows you to interrogate the still images after the fact as well. And all of this software is included for free with the price that you pay for the camera. And on top of that, you're then also getting the hard case included with it too. Whilst it's not the most robust thing in the world, it is certainly going to offer tons of protection, and it's just something that you don't have to go and spend separately. You buy the camera, you get the case, you get the cable, and it's ready to go. If you're looking to get yourself a camera for in the field, a camera for inspection, testing, this is definitely worth a look. This one is definitely more aimed at the inspection market. It doesn't do close range great, as I've said already, that field of view and that minimum 30 centimeter focus distance. It can't really be used for board repair on the very small things that I traditionally use here on the channel, but for electricians, plumbers, engineers, anyone who is looking to have a thermal camera in the field for inspecting electrical systems, lines, power cables, units, whether you want to look at transformers or anything where you want to be able to detect thermal differences, it is absolutely worth a look. And I think it's one of the best standalone options that I have seen out there today. Now, as I have said, there are 2 versions of the Thor available. You have the version 002 that I've got here. This is the standard general use version. This is going to be available for $299. They are currently accepting pre-orders with a $5 deposit. And then there is the Thor 001, which is going to include the macro lens. That version is going to cost twice as much, $599, but that is still a hell of a lot cheaper than the equivalent from other manufacturers. The 002 version, the standard version, is at least 3 times cheaper, and that's at least half cheaper. When it comes to the differences between the 2 models, there are a few little changes that you do need to be aware of. It's not just about the macro lens. Both versions have the same thermal resolution, they have the same display, they do have the same temperature range, but there is a slight difference in accuracy between them. It's 1.5 C plus minus on the 001 and 2 on this version here. They have the same focal length, but there is a difference in the spot meter. There's a 9-point spot meter on the thermal one with the macro lens, or a 6-point spot meter on this one. And there are a couple of other differences like color palettes. So this one includes 7, whereas that one includes 9. But overall, it is pretty much the same camera. If you go down, they do have a document, which is a data sheet that does have a lot more in-depth info on the differences between the cameras. So if you're interested in seeing that, it is available on the Thermal Master website. There will be a link to that below. This goes into all of the nitty-gritty details between the two, but there isn't a crazy amount between them. It is just a couple of little things here and there. One of the biggest benefits, obviously, of the macro version is the focal range. So for instance, as I've said already, my one that I've got here is 30 centimeters. The macro version goes down to 8 centimeters, and that's going to be the ideal version for things like electronic repair on the bench. If you're interested in ordering one, there will be a link to it in the description. So that's it, the Thor. Really good bit of kit. I hope you found this video interesting. If you have any questions, please do let me know down below and I will try and answer them. If you want to order one, as I've said, the link will be below. I want to say a big thank you to Thermal Master for sending this over for us to take a look at. And finally, I just want to say, if you'd like to support the channel to allow us to keep making content, please do consider checking out the link to my Patreon as well as buying me a coffee. It is only through the support of patrons am I able to keep making content on this channel. And if you'd like to support us, please do consider checking it out. Anyway, that's it from me on this one. Stay safe. I will speak to you soon.